nothing gives you more confidence than setting a goal and then meeting it. And then you get that, yes, that was me, I did it. So that's why when we set goals, the important thing is to actually celebrate the little wins. Yeah. So acknowledge the little progresses.
Hi guys, we are back. And we have today with us Danny. Hi Danny.
Hello, hi.
So Danny is, I'm just going to read it out. So Danny's a coach. He's a physiotherapist and a hypnotherapist, an author and a speaker. You've just got loads to do, haven't you? And he's on a mission to empower people so that they can be more confident and express themselves and feel inspired to share their value with the world. I love that. You want to, so we feel confident enough to share who we are with the world.
Just share it, yeah.
Yeah, and it says you're the winner of the Prestige 2021 Life Coach, and you are the author of the book I've got in my hand and the best advice for speakers.
Yes.
Yeah, so that award was this year.
Yes, yeah, and just this week I've been shortlisted for the Norfolk Business Awards, so it's been a very, very productive year so far.
Yeah. So when you wrote this book, right, what made you, why did you write it?
If I'm being totally honest, I was at a conference about 6 months before I even started writing it. And the person at the front of the conference said something that I just couldn't get out of my head. And it was, the book that changes your life won't be the one that you read, it'll be the one that you write. And when I heard that, I was like, ooh, like something's tickled me there. And then I thought, what would I love to write about? What do I do every day that I know would help people? And I thought the thing that I've developed over 5 or 6 years is actually putting a bit of a system in place so I can methodically build confidence. I had so many years lacking confidence. When I kind of cracked a formula to build it, I wanted to make it as systemized as possible. And so actually the book just flowed out of me. So it was a joy to write.
Oh, okay. So how did you come up with the why 6 steps?
The 6 steps was more in terms of making sure that I would do something that helped the body. So there's my physio background coming in, trying to, because we all know how much exercise helps. We often don't do it as much as we'd like to. So I wanted to put that in. In terms of my coaching background, it was about helping the mind. So things that can help you change the way you think, the way you feel, and the way that you act. And then the last couple of steps are a little bit more about, we could say spirit, but what's important to you? So what do you love learning about? What do you want to put into action? What do you want to create? So it was something that I could fit into a designated period of time and touched all 3 bases.
Yeah. So how, it's lovely. Your book is lovely. But how would I put that into place? How does it get from being something I read into being something I actually do in my daily life?
Well, I think the key, and this is sort of threaded throughout the book, is that we need to actually turn it into something that you want or desire to do, not something like you feel like you should do. For example, I'm currently doing one of the 30-day yoga series. And I'm not doing it because I want to. I'm doing it because I've been sitting for quite a while and I think, oh, I really should do something. So every day when it comes to do my bit of yoga, I'm not really in the mood. And then it's a hard slog to do it. So after I get to the 30 days, I'll stop and I probably won't do it for 6 months. Okay. But when it comes to my morning routine, I love waking up in the morning and doing sort of 10, 15 minutes of HIIT. I love going into a little bit of trance and hypnosis. I love planning what I'm going to do during the day. And I love getting one of the piles of books that I've got, and I love learning about stuff. So the key message is to make sure that you're aligning things that you want to do rather than should.
So it's lovely that you get up in the morning and you have time to do that. What would you say to a mum whose kids might get up before her? If they're little, but if they're teenagers, they probably don't. But you know, who has something always to be doing something. How can she do that?
I would say the key here is that when I put out the chapter in the book about designing your sort of routine, it doesn't have to be in the morning. So what I would as much encourage as possible, now I know this is going to be sometimes just impossible for mums, but aim to find a time where you can schedule it in. And scheduling is really important, so you can get sort of a time that's booked in for you. And then also think about consistency. Now, it will be much more beneficial for your confidence to have one period per week that you hit every single week, and that becomes sort of your time, as opposed to saying what a lot of people do, right, I want to make a change every day this week, I'm going to do 15 minutes and then 30 minutes, and then life gets in the way and you don't hit those targets, and then we often tend to beat ourselves up. So the guideline that I'd say is look for a minimum and then hit your minimum consistently, because you can always go up, but then it's a lot harder, and you're usually a lot harder on yourself when you try to drop down. So start small and build is what I'd recommend.
So would you also say to pick one thing, because you said do what you enjoy doing. So how would you know which one to pick?
So first of all, we all have a unique set of values. So we all have a series of things going from what we value most to what we value least. So the things that we find most meaningful, the things that we find least meaningful. So what we want to do is align as much as we find meaningful as we can. So for a beginning period, this might be a little bit of exploration. You might want to try things out a little bit. Probably from past experience, you've got a bit of an idea about what you like and what you don't want. So some people might know that actually high intensity training at the start of the day just isn't for them. Whereas other people might know that actually yoga, 10, 15 minutes of yoga works really well. So the idea is to, first of all, start with what you know, and then let that grow so you can build on it. And then treat it as a bit of a journey to explore new things. And then don't get upset if you find something, oh, that didn't work for me. Then that's just something that you've ticked off the list. So treat it as a little bit of an exploration.
So how does doing a little bit of exercise or doing a bit of meditation, how does that help build our confidence?
So with any question like this, I think it's best that a picture speaks louder than words. So at this point, can I share my screen?
Yes, go for it.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the graphic we're looking for. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. So first of all, I want to bring your attention to this central orange dot. Okay. Now, I'd like you to think about this position as being where you're most confident, you're most comfortable, you're most open to express yourself. This is when you're doing the things that help you feel like you. Now, for any event or person in our life that we have an emotional charge towards, so maybe it's either a past event or a recent event that kind of pushed our buttons a little bit, then this drags us away from that middle point, and it lowers our confidence and our self-esteem. Similarly, for anything that we feel guilty or we feel ashamed of, that drags us off in this position.
Okay.
For people that we negatively compare ourselves to, so, oh, look at Jane down the road who's got such an amazing life, all this money, and her kids are an absolute dream, that drags us off in this direction.
Okay.
And then for a lot of people, either the fear of getting overconfident or actually getting to that place where you're a little bit cocky and a little bit self-righteous, that drags you off as well.
Okay.
So what we find is we get this dynamic where, depending on your circumstances, you get pulled in different directions. So what the morning routine is and what the 6 steps to confidence does is, regardless of where you are, all of the exercises help you bring back to that midpoint. So we're doing all the things that bring you back to being you, letting go of what you no longer need, what doesn't serve you, and then actually helping you focus on what you like. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, I love that. I love visuals, so I see a lot in pictures.
Yeah.
So yeah, makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
So all of the steps is just designed to bring that in, because if we think about the world that we live in today, we have family stresses, we have work stresses, financial stresses, we get so much stimulation from everywhere that we need a number of different tools to bring us back home.
Mm. Can I ask you a curveball question?
Oh, go for it.
So one of the questions is, I think some women think that some men are more confident because that's the way that they naturally are, the way they've been brought up. So is confidence different for men than it is for women?
I would say that for a lot of people, the family environment or the social environment that they grew up in does naturally lend a tendency towards men to take more action. And a lot of the time, action builds confidence, because when you feel competent at something, then you're like, yeah, I can do this. And there's a lot more of a push or an encouragement sometimes for males to just go and do it. And the byproduct of that is that actually they build confidence quicker. So I think there's a certain amount of a social dynamic, there's a certain amount of family rules. So when we're growing up, we get told certain things like you shouldn't be doing this, or you need to be quiet there. Whereas we have different rules often for males and females.
But I love what you said about taking action builds confidence. So taking action, however small, and whichever step, whichever part of you do, like meditation or exercise or whatever, self-care, you are taking action, you are building confidence in yourself, and your commitment to yourself. And it's like, don't knock the small things, isn't it?
Absolutely. Nothing gives you more confidence than setting a goal and then meeting it. And then you get that, yes, that was me, I did it. So that's why when we set goals, the important thing is to actually celebrate the little wins. Yeah. So acknowledge the little progresses. So for each goal that I work on, at least once a day, I'll think about 1, 2, or 3 things that have actually helped me move slightly in that direction. And don't get me wrong, there's days when I have to really, really think to find that one thing. But actually, the more evidence that we give ourselves that we are doing things right, that we are going in the right direction, the more confidence we feel. So it's about building data, if you want, to convince yourself that you're going in the right direction.
And then if you move it, they might say, oh my gosh, I've got like all this distance to cover, but 1%, it doesn't feel like anything. I know that. I've done that 1% thing, and I'm not going, really? It doesn't feel like anything's changed. But over time, 1%, 1%, 1%, 1%, and you do get there. And if you fall off the horse, what do?
Get straight back on. Now, there's a book called Atomic Habits. And James Clear in that says one sentence that again stuck with me. And he talks about this period called the period of latent potential. It sounds fancy, doesn't it? But essentially what it means is for anything that you're working on, there's a period where it seems like nothing's getting any different, nothing's improving. And then all of a sudden you reach a threshold, and then you can go, now something's different. So I think when we know that beforehand, that, okay, I'm going to embark on a bit of a journey, and to begin with, I might not notice much progress, but it will get there at some point. I think that eases the stress a little bit, because we all like to feel progress, don't we?
Yeah, and it's being patient and kind to ourselves to go, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to trust the process.
Yeah.
It's not always easy. When it
comes to mums specifically, because I do work with quite a few mums, when we think about that value system, sometimes it can be really difficult to prioritize self-care, because there's so much else going on. I know there's a lovely talk earlier about self-care, but when we can actually find that time and schedule it, then we can start to build a bit of confidence.
And then, okay, so why does it matter if we have confidence or not?
I like to think of it as confidence is always the vehicle. So it's not often the end result. because we want confidence to be able to do something. And when we're doing it, we want to enjoy doing it. So for me, confidence is about helping you enjoy the journey rather than just thinking, I'll be happy when, or I'll be happy if. When you're feeling confident in yourself, you can bounce back from setbacks, you can enjoy the ups, and you can stay feeling relatively positive throughout. Whereas if you're struggling with confidence, knockbacks are even more painful. They take harder to get up from, and you only feel like you've achieved something at the end result. And by then, it's kind of lost its shininess anyway. So confidence is making the journey nicer.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned the word vehicle. So it's like fueling the vehicle, isn't it? It's a power cell that makes everything else, gives everything else momentum.
Yes, yeah. I think that's the key word, momentum. Yeah.
Where's the line then? Because on that lovely grid that you showed on your screen, our screen, it said, where's the line between being healthily confident and then, whoa, you're just about to become arrogant? How do you, because a lot of people are frightened of that. And I think it's very cultural, because obviously different parts of the world, they are very different with this.
Well, overconfidence it'll either be because you're feeling that you're getting puffed up, or it'll be because other people are speaking. Now, one of our biggest fears often is people chattering about us and people judging us. So we need to be a little bit careful with that one, because if someone else is struggling and then all of a sudden they see you becoming more confident, becoming fitter and healthier, the likelihood is that they might struggle with that a little bit, and they might perceive you to be being a bit overconfident, where actually you're just being yourself. So where possible, I like to keep confidence and overconfidence an inside job, and it's about how you're feeling. So if you're feeling puffed up, if you're feeling self-righteous, usually you'll get a bit of feedback. So sometimes someone will chop you down a little bit, and that can get you to think.
And most often it's your child. Teenagers will just say it out as it is.
Unfiltered, just genuine feedback. Yeah, which is very, very helpful. But also, the more we focus on appreciation and acknowledgement, the less we're going to go near that anyway. Because when we think about what we have and what we want, and we appreciate it, that kind of keeps us in that safe zone. It keeps us in that green space. So overconfidence is more a fear for a lot of people. They don't want to go there. Then actually, when they do go there, usually it's quite easy to rein back from, because you'll either get quick feedback or you'll notice it within yourself. And again, that's a practice. So there'll certainly be times where I've got a bit above my station, and then my wife will bring me down a little bit, and then I'll go, okay, yeah, I definitely played a part in that. I deserved that. So we need to think of it as something, I like to think of it a bit like a stock chart. You know, you're going to have some days where it goes up, some it's going to drop, but we're looking for directionally correct. That's what we're aiming for.
And you said about people, so not be people will judge you or tell you. And people are interesting, because when they are used to being in a certain way, they're used to a certain pattern, they're used to a certain amount of predictability. When you change who you are, it can feel very unsettling to others, and then they make you feel there's something wrong with you, and they try and like halt you in your process.
We all like to feel that we're on a similar level to someone, don't we? And if someone is going to make the investment in themselves, they're going to put the energy and they're going to put the determination in, then if one person's willing to do that and another person's not, that creates a bit of an internal tension. So one of the ways that we compensate for that is trying to rein that person in to bring them back. So we want to, first of all, set the reason for why do we want to be more confident, so that it's an inside job, and then be aware that some people will just support you and they'll encourage you, and you'll have people who are championing you on. But to expect everyone to be like that is a little bit unrealistic. So when we think there's probably going to be a balance, then when you know that in advance, then you're more prepared for it. So I think the more we know in advance, the better. And if we know that actually the price of becoming more confident is that the occasional person is going to struggle with that, then it's up to you whether that's a cost worth paying. But it is.
Yeah, definitely. And when it's on the inside, when it's so strong, and you remember who you are and why you're doing it on the inside. Because one of the side questions was the outworking of feeling confident, feeling good about yourself, doing the exercise and everything is that you can lose weight. But then if you, as a woman, as a mum, lose weight and you feel good and you feel sexy and you're like got a lot more energy back, and then your partner, your other half, isn't on the same pathway as you like that, then there is a bit of conflict. So how can we use the confidence that we have to maintain a bridge between,
and without a doubt, that's not a one-line solution. So I wouldn't pretend that's easy to do, because when you're in that dynamic, it is going to be a bit of a challenge. The way that I like to think of it is the more, first of all, the more you are aligned, the more that you actually radiate that out. So when someone can see that you're genuinely interested in something, that usually increases the probability that they'll be more open to it. Now, if you're in a relationship and your partner isn't quite on board with that, then first of all, there's one way that you can kind of help change the dynamic and help them to see how you improving will actually help them. And that is usually a really helpful way of actually transforming it, because when they can see that actually you getting fitter, you having more energy, you feeling sexier is actually going to also benefit them, then usually they'll go, yeah, go for it. So a lot of the time the partner will view things from their own perspective, but they won't open that up. So sometimes we need to share that a little bit, to share a bit of information, because sometimes we can get narrowed in on our viewpoint.
So then there's always the case of when you are more confident about who you are, because didn't you say something about competency? There's a competency, what's the other, I think you said another word.
So when we think about action breeds confidence, and the way that we feel confident is when we're competent at something. So the more we can practice, the more that we can actually build that muscle. So if we think about it as a process and we think, okay, there's going to be challenges along the way, but I'm in it for the journey, then we can start to build confidence. And that's when we need to reflect back on what we've done well. Because if you're having a bit of a down day, it hasn't gone quite well, and then you've got a little journal or a notebook that you can then look through the last 3 months, you've made so much improvement, and then you can kind of go, okay, my stock chart has dipped today, but tomorrow I'll get back on it again. So sometimes we make the mistake of expecting to be too confident before we've put the work in, the training in, because we need to build those muscles in order to sort of have it for the long term, if that makes sense.
So what about the whole, they say, just do the power pose and put your head back and fake it till you make it? What do you say to all that then?
They're tactics. I think they're great tactics. For everything, there's going to be best practices about how you can get quick wins. And definitely if you're in a sort of a body posture where you're slumped, and that's going to affect your chemistry. So using that as a helpful tactic is going to help you make a shift. Is it going to be a long-term solution? We're probably going to need more than that. And that's when we need to think about the way that we think, because we don't actually learn much about how to think. And that sounds an odd sentence, but we don't really get taught how to process emotions. We don't really learn what perception causes what emotion. So we're all kind of like figuring it out along the way. And then we try and learn from someone who's got a bit more knowledge than we do. So the key is, tactics are brilliant, but what we also want is the understanding to know how to apply it ourselves. And then you'll be able to use the tactics more efficiently as well.
And then you said you mentioned reflection, and competency. So it's becoming consciously competent, isn't it? It's that whole thing of I'm aware of them doing it, and that builds confidence in itself.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of like, it's a bit like a chicken and egg, but it's not. So, but it is
we
about.
We have to go somewhere, don't we?
Yeah. So it's there's a whole lot of self-awareness around this, isn't there? And you're right, young people in school aren't taught this. So as mums, not that I'm saying we do beat ourselves up, but there's no, you know, it's never too late to learn, and B, the kids, everybody, actually anybody around us is learning. We're just, because you said when we're aligned, it just radiates out, and when things radiate out, we affect the world around us, and which can only be a good thing.
Yeah, and it's when you allow yourself to express yourself that someone else then thinks, I'd like to spend a bit more time with them. Like there's something. And when we think about like the top speakers and the top leaders all over the world, it's their energy that we think we're drawn to it because we want more of it. And I believe the reason for that is we recognize something in them that we know we have, but we want more of it.
Definitely.
So we're drawn towards them to try and get more of it ourselves. So it's not actually them we're drawn to, it's the part of us that we want to have more of. So, and when it comes to like kids and if they're struggling with their emotions, I like to think of it as if your teenager came back and they were really beating themselves up because they tried to go driving and they couldn't figure out the pedals, they couldn't figure out the signaling, and it didn't go very well. Well, you'd say, okay, well, we need to teach you how to do it. We need to learn the steps and the way to do it. But whereas when sometimes kids are struggling with anxiety or they're struggling with feeling low, then there isn't that sort of framework to then say, here we go, how we can work on this together. So I think that's something that going forwards, we could have a lot more of to actually help mums and children have some more tools to be able to manage how they think.
And I love it because it's just such a key. And I love what you said in your little bio, that you've got to share their value, inspired people to share their value with the world, because mums think a lot of their value is in their kids, which is completely right. But actually, we've got a lot of value in who we are in our own rights. Yeah. Obviously, the kids will leave home and then we'll figure it out again. But we want to have value. We want our kids to have value. And we want to know that there is a bigger purpose that we fit into, and B, we've got the skills and the confidence and what it takes to do or to be. Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to share a story because that's something that you've really highlighted there. And this lady may be on the call with us. So when I started working with her, the challenge that she was having is that she's got children, and the thing that she really enjoys is running. So she really loves like marathon and long distance running. But what she was really struggling to do is find a way to create her life that would allow her to embrace the thing that she loves, because she was feeling guilty that she was giving that too much attention. So it was creating this inner conflict. And when we helped her really connect to her values and helped her see that, yeah, she loves her kids and she also loves running, what we were able to do over a very short space of time is she started to become a part-time running coach, that then moved to a full-time coach, that then started to a running coach business, to brand commercials and podcasts. And actually the key difference was allowing her to embrace that high value that she has. Okay. So I think we all have it, but it can be, we need to help people tap into it sometimes. So if there's something that you know you love, then find out little ways that you can just build it into your life a little bit more. And I think that'll make a world of difference. And those 1% that you talked about, they do add up. And then all of a sudden, wow, my life is in a different place.
Yeah, that's brilliant. You have wrapped that up so well. Yeah. that's like an amazing, you are a lovely teacher, Danny. You are very succinct. And yeah, so I can see that the coach part, the physiotherapist, that you are bringing in everything into you yourself, giving value to the world. And I think that's what we do in it. You do it by example, I do it by example, mums, we all do it by example.
Absolutely.
Because how else are the kids going to figure it out?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So yeah, so I'd love to thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing. And thank you. Did you have something to share with everybody? I can't remember now.
I do, yes. So thank you very much for having me and for listening to me as I chatter on. And what I like to do is, I've talked about data a couple of times, haven't I, in terms of building a bit of a knowledge base. So we've got a link that'll take you to my scorecard, where it'll ask you some questions that will help you identify where your strengths and weaknesses are. You'll get an exercise to practice, and then you'll also get a hypnotherapy recording to help you along your way. So it'll take a couple of minutes to fill in, and then that's all sent to you. So
and that link is in the chat.
There we go. That's the one.
Brilliant. So thank you for your time.